Hello, my name's Ian Moore. I conduct a number of walking tours of central Sunderland. I do Shipyard Girls Tour, lost pubs of the 60s, lost shops and stores, lost cinemas. Today I want to talk about a subject close to our hearts, or should I say close to our stomachs, that is restaurants, takeaways and food outlets in general. Now I'll start my tale at the beginning of the 70s. Back in the 70s, okay, it's 50 odd years ago now, there wasn't a great deal in the way of exotic eateries in Sunderland. To the best of my knowledge, there were two Chinese, the Ling Hong and the Bamboo, which had various names in its time, and the Delhi Durbar Indian takeaway up Hilton Road. There was a Chinese takeaway, the Goodyear, in bottom of Chester Road, but I'm not sure if that was a restaurant at the time. I think it was just takeaway. I remember 1973, my mate's brother had a few friends up from university. One of them was an American, and he said, what do you want to do? Where would you like to eat? And he said, I'd love to eat some Czechoslovakian food tonight. And he said, come on, man, you're pushing it a bit there. But these days, we've got all manner of beautiful restaurants. We've got Vietnamese, Persian, Turkish, Pan-Asian, everything. I think it's a really good selection. I've eaten Indian meals all over the world, but my favourite is my Delhi. I think it's the best Indian food I've ever had. So where we're standing now, the port of call's behind us. In a previous incarnation, it was the Biz Bar. Now, to be honest, I never went in the Biz Bar. It was a bit above my league. I didn't have enough money. It's a place to kind of see people and be seen. If you could get there early and sit in the window, it looked very cool for people walking by. Jeff Dockery, in his book about music, promoting music in Sunderland, he was often in there. It was a good place to network for him. There used to be some very, very snazzy sports cars outside. I think they belonged to rich Greek students from what was the technical college at that time. It was owned by the Biryani family, a well-known family in Sunderland. You probably recall Biryani's ice cream coffee parlour in High Street and the one down the seafront as well. There were a lot of Italian families. I don't know when they arrived in Sunderland, probably in the 30s. I've heard tales of Italian people that were so poor they actually walked from Italy to the UK to try and find a job in the South Wales coalfields or whatever. So some of the names I remember, Tognarelli, Mincellas, I think still here, Giraldi. It was a big thing to go and have a knickerbocker glory in Biryani's. Just behind us, where Cleo's is now, there's a place I didn't actually know, but I've heard many people talk about it and say it was a great place, Rowell's Cafe. I mean, this has always been a busy place with the rink being up here and the bus station. It was a handy place to stop and have a snack or whatever. Next door to it was, it's a word you don't hear much now, a furrier. I think that's how you say it, Maurice Velody, like high-class fashions. I never went in there either. So just behind us there, it's now the bed and mattress shop. Used to be a very popular coffee, ice cream bar, Louise. My mother was always in there, she was always down the town. She had to stop and have a cup of coffee about every hour and a half. This is the location of the Biryani's ice cream parlour, coffee bar here. It was a real treat if you came here. I have to admit I was guilty of a small crime here in 1968. In our little gang, to prove you were a gang member, you had to nick a coffee spoon from Biryani's, and I'm afraid I did that. So I think the statute of limitations might have passed now, so please forgive me, Biryani family. While we're here, we'll stop at Marks and Spencer's in High Street. All the big stores had coffee bars in those days, where a bit more than a coffee bar really, you get quite a good snack. There used to be one in Binns. I think they had a couple of cafes in Binns. One of their cafes was called the Bear Pit. I don't know what happened in the Bear Pit. I was always intrigued by the name though. So one of my favourite smells from Sunderland is the smell of fresh bread. And there used to be some very popular bakers in Sunderland. So just behind me here, not that long ago, was Simpson's. They also had a baker's shop just on the corner next to Joseph's, opposite the station there. And before Simpson's was here, there was Milburn's. They had 3 or 4 outlets in the town. So here it was just sandwiches and cakes and whatnot. But in Homeside they had a cafe, a very popular place for a cup of tea and a sandwich. So just behind me there, just where Teutonic's open air bit is, there used to be a nice Italian restaurant called Pizzeria Pinocchio. I think it opened very early 70s. I was first there spring 1972 when I was leaving school. A few of our teachers, who got on very well with them, said, let's go and have an Italian lunch somewhere. Well, I'd eaten spaghetti at home, and my mum even made a prototype pizza about the year before, but I'd never been to an Italian restaurant before. And I didn't understand all this antipasti business, so I didn't know how big it was. So I think we had minestrone soup, and then I had cannelloni al forno. And after that I was knackered, I could hardly eat anything else. And I didn't know the next course was going to be big as well. And one of my teachers, Mr. Street, said, "Oh, Mole, you cannot take your grub." I don't think that's true actually, but I was struggling on that day. So later on it became Ristorante Milano, which I never went in. And then it burned down, I believe, and there was a big sort of shell of a building there for a long while. On this side, I think it was probably my favourite restaurant in the 70s was Ling Hong. So the Ling Hong Chinese restaurant had been there, I think, since at least the early 60s. One of my friends, Marilyn, was in there in February 1963. It was her birthday. She'd just been to the Empire, and she was celebrating her birthday with a few friends in the Ling Hong, and who should walk in but the Beatles. So they were the band she'd been seeing in the Empire. And John Lennon said, "What are you doing eating fish and chips in a Chinese restaurant?" But I think it was Chinese cuisine was a bit new to her, so she stuck to what she knew best. So in the 1970s, I used to work, 1977, 78, I used to work in Green Terrace, just around the corner. So I was often in the Ling Hong for a bit of an extended lunch. They had a 3-course special, I used to love it. The soup, I've never seen any Chinese soup like it since actually. It was quite thick, and it was a different colour, but it tasted basically the same every day. But I really enjoyed it. The next course you had a choice of chop suey and a few other things, and they'd have all sorts of exotic desserts, like a banana in batter. Is that a banana fritter? I'm not quite sure what it was, but it was enormous. So we're always in here scoffing that. Now I need a bit of help on this one. About a month ago, I saw a picture of the Vine Grill. Now this is a place I hadn't even thought of for about 50 years, and I never went in there. I was too young really to go for meals when it was in existence. But I think it was somewhere here, I'm pretty sure it was here, maybe where Jack's Thai restaurant place is now. But it opened in 1957. I think it was quite a swish place, steaks and stuff like this. So if you could help us with that one, please leave a comment. And just on the left here, this is a place I used to frequent a lot. So I think it opened beginning of 1978, it was Harvey's. Now in a previous incarnation it had been a newsagent's called Porritt's, and people used to call this Porritt's Corner. So it opened, like I say, early 1978, and had all manner of exotic things which I'd never really had before. It sounds daft, but a baked potato with mayonnaise. Oh, this was something really, really outlandish for me. And I drank a Campari. I don't think I really knew what a Campari was, but I tried one of them one day. A lot of people liked it because it was open after the pubs closed. Pubs used to close early in them days, so it was a very popular hangout. And it's gradually morphed over the years into various incarnations. It's extended, it's unrecognisable compared to what it was before. Personally, I never saw a pizza or a kebab in Sunderland until probably the mid-70s. So before that, the mainstay of a takeaway meal was, of course, the chippy. You get a bag of chips for 6p, 2.5p. This one behind us, we called it the black and white chip shop because it was black and white, surprisingly. My mother used to be secretary to the director at the Empire Theatre, and one day, I think it was the 1980s, who should she have perched on the end of her desk but Eartha Kitt. Eartha Kitt said, "Audrey, where can I get some really nice fish and chips?" And she said, "Oh, try the black and white fish shop." So I don't suppose Eartha went up herself, like maybe her assistant went to get the goodies for her. My mum's parents, incidentally, they were in the fish and chip business, Bob and Bella Jones. They had a chip shop at the Wee Chief from 1913 to 1953, so any older viewers may remember that one. My grandma was a very bad-tempered woman, and if the drunks were playing up too much, she'd produce a bloody big filleting knife and threaten them with it. And if my granddad got sick, he'd just take his apron off, chuck it on the shelf, and go down the Wee Chief pub for a couple of drinks. A lot of Indian takeaways started appearing in late 60s, early 70s. There was one, I can't remember where it was Hilton Road, somewhere near the railway. And we had a few bob then, we were all working. So if we've been out having a few drinks, we'd often get the munchies on the way home. And they had a a special biryani, and it cost £1.75, which was a lot of dough then really. And I don't know who dreamt up this special biryani, but on top there was half a sliced banana and a fried egg. Seems a very strange combination, but I think we got it twice, and being a bit of a pig, I ate all of mine, but I remember my mate woke up and he saw his lying untouched next to him, so I don't think he tried having one again. One of my favourite places to have a bit of a spicy lunch in the early 80s was the Melting Pot. It was just there where that sale sign is. Again, it was quite a reasonably priced 3-course lunch, businessman's lunch again they called it. Mulligatawny soup and a choice of main courses and kind of fruit salad or something for the last course. I can't remember when it closed. It was going there for quite a long while. I do remember being in here, it must have been Christmas 1983. My brother had been working in Saudi Arabia and he was getting pretty good money over there. And when we were in the restaurant, he said, "Don't take your eyes off this case." He had this attaché case, and wherever we went, he held it close to him. I found out later he had 100,000 quid in there. That was what he'd saved up from Saudi. I don't know what he was carrying about all the time for, but there you go. So here we are in Fawcett Street, and across the way there, this beautiful building was designed by an architect called Frank Cause, who he also designed the Elephant Tea Room as well. So maybe one day they'll restore the lower half of this as they have done in the Elephant Tea Rooms. Anyway, back before I remember, to be honest, there was a very swish sort of restaurant tea room place called Meng's. Sounds maybe Chinese, but I think it was the French family. So if you went there, you were really putting the boat out. If you read the Shipyard Girls books, 2 of the female characters get taken there on a posh date. My auntie had a wedding reception there. It wasn't a grand affair. There was her husband and the witness. So she's the only person I know who ever went in there. So a place I was very fond of was the Hong Kong. It was a Chinese restaurant, obviously. Just, I think it was right here. I think it was still open until about 20 years ago. It's had various names over the years. I think it was called the Lotus Garden in an earlier incarnation, but I only knew it as the Hong Kong. Sometimes they had a businessman's lunch as well, and go in the evenings sometimes. Nice grub. My friend Eartha was in here once, about maybe 30 years ago, with another mutual friend, let's call him John. It was right at the end of the evening. They were the last ones in the restaurant, and the waiters had all gone out into the kitchen, so they were alone in the restaurant. And suddenly, without saying anything, John got up and he ran out of the restaurant. And Arthur thought, what am I going to do? He only had enough money for his meal. He couldn't afford to pay for John's as well. So he was obliged to run out the door as well. He didn't really want to do it, but he didn't want to shop his mate and he couldn't pay. So the 2 of them ended up legging it up High Street. And they looked behind them and some of the staff were in pursuit, but they never caught them. This, of course, is a very naughty thing to do. I know 1 or 2 places, the Delhi Durbar, for example, I think this was quite famous for people doing a runner there. So in the Delhi Durbar in 1978 is where I had my very first Vindaloo, when they were kind of famed for how strong they were, of course. I was with my girlfriend. I was only about 23, 24, so standards had to be maintained. I started eating it. After about the second mouthful, I thought, my God, I cannot handle this. But I ploughed on, and my eyes started running, my nose started running. But I thought, I've got to finish it, I cannot lose face here. So I managed to consume it. It was quite an ordeal. And let's say the next day or 2, rearrange this phrase, the bottom fell out of my world. But these days, I can handle Vindaloo, no trouble at all. I suppose you get used to them. So you can see where we are, just next to the fire station. There used to be some very, very old buildings here until maybe late 70s. I think they're about 300 years old. But one of them, it was called the Chop Suey House. It was a Chinese takeaway. If you're old enough to remember the summer in 1974, this was the summer of Kung Fu. The #1 song was Kung Fu Fighting, and Kung Fu, the TV show, was on. Everybody's into Kung Fu, big style. And these people in the takeaways, they didn't have to get some stick when all the drunks rolled in after the pubs closed and that. I noticed the lad in the Chop Suey house, he had a picture of himself leaping in the air, bare-chested, giving it the old Kung Fu kick style, hopefully to try and deter any would-be aggressors. So High Street baths used to be just here. And you may remember it could be very cold in there. So when you came out, if you had a few bob, you could buy something to revitalise yourself. And that, of course, was the Savaloy dip. There used to be a shop called Pyburns. I think it was a baker's shop, really. But my friend introduced us Savaloy dips. He said, take the skins off, please. Bit of peas pudding in a bun, and they dipped it in the gravy. And it was a nice warm filling snack on the way home. I'm sure many people remember Savaloy dips. I think you can still get them, actually. I don't know where, though.